on the Great Canadian Farm Tour, it's important to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of Indigenous people. Agriculture in the Classroom Canada recognizes and honors the enduring presence of the diverse Indigenous communities across Canada, including the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. We acknowledge the deep connection that Indigenous peoples have to the land, waters, resources, and all of agriculture. We express our gratitude for their stewardship and custodianship of these lands for generations. Agriculture in the Classroom Canada recognizes acknowledging the traditional territories we reside and work on is a small step towards reconciliation. We ask that we all continue to learn more about the Indigenous peoples in these regions, to consider the history and ongoing colonialism on this land, and to reflect on how each of can contribute to reconciliation. Hello, welcome everyone to our next destination in Season 3 of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. We are delighted to have all participants from across Canada joining us today. My name is Mercedes Unwin from Agriculture Anglaise Canada, and with Julie Huberdour from L'École-O-Champ. Julie will be your Mistress of Ceremonies today, but before we begin, we'd like to make a few reminders. For those who want to follow in English, please use the Interprofile link provided in the chat to access the interpretation and captioning services provided for this event. We ask everyone to keep in mind that this is an educational event and inappropriate behavior in the chat, such as spamming and inappropriate comments, will not be tolerated. Throughout the visit, we invite you to ask your questions in the chat in order to obtain answers. We will answer as many questions as possible. The mystery word for your digital activity books will appear at the end of this episode. Stay with us to find out. And finally, we would like to know where you are joining us from. Please include your school and location in the chat. Julie will talk the most today with our host. So I say goodbye for now, and I'll come back later. Bye for now. Thank you, Mercedes. So today we are in Quebec, and we are going to learn more about growing tomatoes in greenhouse. I have the pleasure of introducing Peggy Clermont, who is the President and CEO of Savoura, and Richard Dorval, the Vice President of Production at Savoura. Hello, both of you. How are you? Hi, Julie. That's great. Great to be here. Hi to you, students, teachers, and teachers of Quebec and Canada. We agree that eating is essential for our survival. But have you ever wondered where what you eat comes from or how it happened? Well, today we want to awaken you to the thousands of riches that agriculture can offer us. Without further ado, I'll give the floor to Richard. Enjoy your visit. Thanks, Peggy. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here with you today. You know, at Savoura, we proudly grow greenhouse tomatoes and with a lot of passion. And today, we will explain to you how it's done at home and how it works. I really love tomatoes, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here. I'm sure all of you already get to make a start. So what do we start with today? All right, so today, Julie, I'm going to talk to you about where we grow our tomatoes. I'm, of course, talking about the greenhouse. As pictures is worth 1,000 words, let's watch the first video for more details. All right, that's great, fantastic. Imagine a house for the plants. It's kind of this, a greenhouse, this is it. Let's see how it works. A greenhouse, it's like a big transparent glass box getting the light through it, and it's really important for the plants as they need that light to grow up. The greenhouse is the same paper your house to protect the plants from the cold, from the rain, from the snow, or any other weather issue that could damage them. The sun is warming up the air and creating a comfy atmosphere for the plants to grow. Even though it's really cold outside, and the plants will need many things to grow up: light, water, nutrients on the ground. In this greenhouse, people who are working here can control all of these. They can pour water on the plants, be sure they have enough nutriment in the ground, and regulate the temperature to be sure it's warm enough inside. They can manage the lamps to compensate the dark light in winter. Just as if these plants were on vacations in this perfect place for them to be happy. Wow, this is really very interesting, and I think we'll have a very first question. Jean-Marc wants to know, what do you do if the roof breaks in winter? That's a great question, isn't it? Indeed, in Savoura we have a team of mechanics dedicated to repairing our greenhouse structures, so when a breakage happens, we enter in emergency mode to make sure our plants don't get cold, and we already have replacement parts to be sure that we are going to act as quickly as possible. I'm sure you don't need to lose time. Indeed. Are you ready for a second question, Richard? Sure. All right. Alton wants to know how your tomato is still really good, it tastes good, and in summer as well. All right. The very first aspect is the choice of our varieties. The variety is really important because we are going to choose varieties who are as much success from the market. As you can see here is the color. Why the color is important? Because here we are going to collect the very red tomatoes ready to be eaten, while the tomatoes coming from the outside are going to be a bit greener, just like this one, just to be sure that when they are on the market, they are still eatable. So here we are collecting the tomatoes as being red, and we are closer from the market, close to the market, so we're sure that we are going to put all these very tasty tomatoes in the market. All right, that's great. Let's have a third question, I think, here. Oh, Laura Isley wants to know, how many tomato plants do you have? Oh, God, that's a very good question indeed. We have like thousands of tomatoes plants. In Savoura, we have like more than 40 acres for more than 400,000 square meters. So we have more than 1 million tomato plants here for sure. Wow, that's a lot. Yes, indeed, that's a lot. And we're going to collect from 15 to 20 million kilos per year. Do you have an idea how many elephants it represents? It's around 200,000, 2,700 elephants. All right, that's good. So let's have a break now. A tomato plant starts life from a little seed. The seed is put into the ground and the ground has everything for the tomato plant to grow up. It starts by developing its roots. These are going to nourish the plants, capturing the water and all the nutrients from the ground, from the soil. The leaves appear, then the branches, and become a real tomato plant. Here we are receiving the tomatoes this high. We use coconut fiber on the ground here in these bags to be sure the plant is still growing, needs a lot of water to be, thanks to drop water to give the nutrients drop after drop. It needs a lot of light as well. So these lamps will give this energy. Do you know why the plant needs so much light just to produce its light? We call this the photosynthesis. photosynthesis. It's really important for the plants. Imagine that the plants are like green plants making sugar. Need three elements: water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide. Once our plant is grown up, it produces fruits, but before that, something interesting happens. It's blooming. Tomato plants have beautiful little flowers on their branches, and these flowers are important, essential, because here is having the very first aspect of transformation into tomato. In the greenhouse, we use drones to bring pollen in the flowers. We have them everywhere in the greenhouse, called pollination. The flowers receive the pollen and transforms it into tomatoes. And through time, these little green balls become bigger and bigger, change the colors. They become red, yellow, or any other shiny colors depending on the variety. And these are different than the one you have in your garden. You can grow higher and bigger plants, can raise the height of 5-story building. Imagine you will never see these high plants, but just imagine that the plant itself is very long. So we need to be sure that to take good care of them to maximize the amount of tomatoes per plant. We need to quit some leaves just to be sure that they receive enough light and to optimize venting throughout the plant. Every week we need to add some clips on the branches to sustain the big tomatoes. So the tomato plants are like masterpiece from the nature, transforming a little seed into something really delicious and tasty for us. Fascinating, isn't it? Wow, that's great. Beautiful images. What I noticed that need a big team, a lot of knowledge to make tomatoes grow tomatoes. Peggy and Richard, would you be ready for another question?
Absolutely, Julie. Yes, we are ready. Sarah is wondering how many people work in your greenhouse. Well, actually, we have between 400 and 450 people working here every single day so that we can bring these delicious tomatoes to the market. But obviously, this changes over time because it's not always constant. It really depends on the seasons of the year. Actually, I believe so. It must change over the season. So we do have another question, I believe. Lauriane Desmarais is wondering, Alexandre is asking, what happens when you don't have enough electricity and therefore you don't have enough light? Well, you must know that we do have generators, quite big ones actually, so that we can guarantee that the greenhouse is going to be heated over time. Obviously, if there's a power outage, in this case, we won't have any light. We just keep the heating on, but then we're going to have no light. But it usually doesn't last too long, maybe 1 day maximum at a time, not longer. Now, we do have a third question coming in. Daniela wonders, how do you manage to have a light that is just as good as the sunlight? That's a great question. Well, obviously nothing is gonna replace the sunlight, but in order to be able to grow tomatoes in a greenhouse, we need artificial lighting. So this lighting is really crucial in order to be able to grow tomatoes in the winter. It is a lighting that is specially designed for tomatoes or for other greenhouse vegetables. Wonderful. Now, let's go on to the next block. What are we going to talk? Oh, we do have another question. Sorry, didn't see that. Curtis wants to know what insects are the enemies of the tomato plants. Well, actually, I think we do have two insects that are bad for our tomato plants. It is the white fly And there is another insect that is not good. It is an aphid. So, we obviously always get stung by mosquitoes in the summer, and it's not really nice, right? So it's the same thing for tomato plants. They do get stung by different insects, and they also don't like it, just as us. So what we do is we try to find out the level of insects in the greenhouse, and then we introduce other insects that are predators to the whitefly and to the aphid so that they get eaten by these bigger insects. Wow, I didn't know that. I would have never thought that you would introduce actually insects in a greenhouse for this purpose. Now, our next blog, the topic is going to be the wrapping, right, and consumption. Absolutely. So this is what we're going to see in the next blog. We are going to have a look at the packaging. So what you need to know is that we have a whole team that's going to be involved in the distribution of the tomatoes and the packaging of them. So the next video is going to show you, it's the last one actually, where we will show you how we do the packaging process. In the packaging room, that's where we receive the tomatoes that were harvested from the greenhouse. When packaging, we must make sure that the tomatoes are the right colors and that they do fulfill the criteria regarding size and colors. We then put them in plastic boxes or in cardboard boxes. The packaging process is mostly automated, so we do have the tomatoes coming in. And then they're transferred on the packaging line. They are also then weighed and sorted depending on their different grades or quality. And then they are ready to be delivered to the supermarkets. And guess what? Once in your home, these tomatoes are really good for your health. You can eat them raw in a salad, or you can also cook them, bake them in a pizza, use them to make a delicious sandwich. Well, it really makes me want to eat a tomato sandwich. Well, I understand you. This is really good, and we do eat them quite often. I imagine so. Now, I think that we can maybe take another question now. Yes, perfect. Elia, in Maggie's class, would like to know, what do you do with the tomatoes that fall down on the ground? Oh, that's a good question. So tomatoes that fall to the ground, there's nothing we can do with them, unfortunately. As soon as the tomatoes touch the ground, we cannot use them, so they go basically to waste. But we do have a program to which we participate, so it's important for us. Really, we do participate in a hygiene program, so it is a direct loss, unfortunately, because we cannot use tomatoes that fell to the ground. We are also contemplating different waste recycling program, just to maybe have a look at ways that we could maybe give value to these wasted tomatoes and how we could basically do the best we can with these. There's always room for improvement, right? Absolutely. Now, we do have another question. Nolan is wondering, what is the variety of tomato that is the bestseller in Savoura? Well, we do have two tomatoes. The beef tomato is our bestseller, and the other one is the bulk tomato. I mean, the tomatoes, sorry, not bulk, says the speaker, but we do have tomato. If you want tomato that tastes like heaven, this is the type you want to choose. We are talking about tomatoes that grow in a cluster. That's wonderful. Now we have another question. In Madame Robert's classroom, Hayden is wondering how you transport your tomatoes all the way to the stores without them getting crushed. Well, actually, we put them in boxes, special boxes, so then they are being transported on forklifts. We just want to make sure that they will not get crushed. So we just want to make sure that they get all the way to the store without being altered. We put them on pallets and then we protect them in the boxes. And if I may add, Julie, tomatoes need to breathe as well, and the boxes are designed so that they are provided with holes, ventilation holes, just to make sure that the tomatoes will be actually able to breathe and will be in good condition once they get to the supermarket and then in the consumers' homes. I'm really fascinated by all this. Now, we have a last question, and then we're going to have a little breakout session. Raphael from Madame Beckrich's classroom, Raphael and Livia, they'd like to know how many liters of water are used in order to water these tomatoes. Well, we have a little demonstration for you. So we're going to calculate this maybe in glasses of water. It might be easier to understand. In the summer, it's hotter, it's warmer, right? So plants are just like us. They are thirstier when it's hot. So in the winter, we're going to give them between 2 and 4 glasses of water. It's enough for the winter. But in the summer, we might give them 2 jars, 2 pitchers of water like this one, because plants need to refresh also and to just get cooled down. And since we're talking about water, water is a resource that we use a lot. So what we're trying to do as much as possible is to get rainwater and get that water back to our tomato plants so that we are as ecological as possible. When we're able to do so, we do so. Now, we do have a little session, and then we have more questions for you, maybe 2, 3 or 4 more questions for you. Hello again, everyone. So our friends do have excellent questions. We have all kinds of different questions. We have time maybe to take maybe 3 or 4 more questions. So the next one, Kirlani wonders, how do you water the earth in the greenhouse? Oh, so for that, we do have a specially designed irrigation or watering system. You saw maybe in the video earlier that we did have a drip pipe. So each plant is watered with a drip pipe. If we have 100,000 plants, well, then we have 100,000 drip pipes. And we're going to make sure that the tomatoes get their water on a daily basis. And this is all managed by a computer. It's all automatic, and we can also have light that controls the watering. So if there is sunlight or more lighting, then we give more water, and if the light goes away, we give less water. Now, Matteo would like to know, what do you do with the branches and the rest of the plants once you have harvested the tomatoes? Well, actually, if I understand, this question is how long do we grow the tomatoes in a greenhouse? You know, there are 12 months in a year. So we grow tomatoes during 11 months. So what do we do with all these tomatoes? Or not even the tomatoes, but what is left of them. So the plants, we need to clean everything. So we're going to get all the plants out. We're going to send them out for composting. We're going to try to really make as much value, take as much value out of these remains of the plants as possible. We want to make sure that there are no diseases or no insects. So we really do clean. We do a deep cleaning of the remaining plants. That must be kind of weird when it's empty. Actually, yeah, it is very weird, and it feels very big. Now, another question. How did you choose the name Savoura? Well, it's really something that was done back then, back in the time by the marketing team. We just were wondering what name could be appropriate, and they just chose this. I'm not sure I can tell you the whole story behind this because I wasn't there at the time when they found this name, but I know that the choice back then was an excellent choice, and it is still a good choice today. We are very proud to produce for this brand. Yeah, actually, Savoura is savorous. So, one more question. Ziana is wondering what market your tomatoes usually go to. So, what is the market to which you sell your tomatoes? Yeah. So actually, you can find our range of products, Savoura products, in the supermarkets. You can find them in Ontario as well. Oh, I didn't know that you were present also in Ontario. Okay, another question, maybe a last one to finish. Ava would like to know whether you use pesticides in your farm. Well, actually, what we should know, I was telling you earlier about the insects. So this is a biological fight. So our first option is always a natural and biological. We do have a budget dedicated to that. So this is our first line of intervention. Then we are going to try to use less toxic pesticides. So like soap, for instance, or oils and stuff like that, just to make sure that we avoid pesticides as much as possible, just like at home, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Richard and Peggy, for this wonderful tour of your farm. We are coming to the end of this presentation. Richard, what would you like the students to remember from your visit today? Well, among all the different information that you got in the videos, there are 3 videos that I would like to you to remember. So what's important is that it's great to grow tomatoes in a greenhouse because it allows you to grow them during the whole year. Then earlier you saw the bumblebees. Bumblebees are super important for the tomatoes to disseminate because they help the seeds to disseminate. And then sun obviously is very important, heat and sun. So these are absolute crucial aspects so that we can grow tomatoes. So these are the 3 main informations that I'd like you to remember from today. Now, next time you're going to go to the supermarket, you're going to understand much better how the delicious tomatoes are produced. Yes, I think there was a last message for you from Peggy. Yes, thank you, Julie. You heard many things today, but you should know that at Savoura, the key to our success for growing tomatoes is to put the human being at the center of our concerns. With a team, we are able to create these wonderful works of art that you can really enjoy every single day. Thank you. It was great having you today. Have an excellent rest of the day. Well, I would like to thank you, Richard and Peggy, for this invitation, for having shown us around your greenhouse. Thank you to Mercedes also. I'm sure that now all Canadians in the primary classrooms are much more knowledgeable about the greenhouse tomatoes produced in Quebec. So thank you. I'm going to give the floor maybe to Mercedes for some concluding words. Absolutely. I would like to tell you that today's mystery word is tour. So thank you once again for joining us today for this episode of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. And thank you also, Richard and Peggy. Our next episode is going to take place next week, May 9th. At noon. It's going to be a blueberry farm that we are going to be visiting. Now, see you very soon. Bye-bye.